All right, I think we're live. Let's check it. Yes, we are. What's up, everyone? Andre here, along with Tris and Tom, to discuss the random and huge news today that Activision-Blizzard is being bought by Microsoft. That's right, they are becoming one of the myriad Xbox developers now that company has, in a deal that is costing Microsoft $68.7 billion. $68.7 billion. For comparison, last year Microsoft bought Bethesda for $7.3 billion. So this is a massive amount more, and that brings, of course, with it the entire portfolio that Activision owns, including things like Call of Duty, Candy Crush, Crash Bandicoot, Diablo, Overwatch, Skylanders, StarCraft, World of Warcraft, plus a ridiculous amount of other smaller IPs by comparison, and including of which apparently Geometry Wars, which is really the only one I really care about. So I'm kidding.
You don't care about Spyro?
you know what? I should be. That is one I overlooked. Yeah, I guss I consider that part of Skylanders now, but it really is its own thing, isn't it? Chat. Before we get into it, how are we looking? How are we sounding, more importantly? Let us know if you can hear us all okay. I've got some Crash music in the background, too. Let me know if it's too loud or too quiet. Let us know if anything is too loud or too quiet. Then we'll get into it. So, yeah, Dawn is just commenting in the chat about how, yeah, this is 10 times bigger than the Bethesda purchase. Yeah, Tris was joking earlier. You added 0 to it. There you go. All right. Maybe we should have Tom say something real quick. How are you doing, Tom?
Well, I mean, back in the day when Activision bought Blizzard, that was already kind of big, or kind of merged with them. So,
Yeah.
just getting both of those.
Okay, people can hear us. You can't hear the Crash music, though. What? All right, let me increase the Crash music a little bit. It's not the worst thing in the world if you don't hear the Crash music, but I turned up a little bit. Hopefully it's not too loud. But yeah, we wanted to do this as a live stream. For one, because we have a lot going on. It's a little bit easier. And two, this is such big news. We didn't want to wait on pre-recording it, editing it, getting it up. We had to discuss this right now. Some of us just woke up not that long ago. So it's been a very busy day already, and did not see this coming. So chat, just confirm, is the sound, can you hear the music now? Are we all fully good now? It's not too loud? And then we'll get going officially in this. But yeah, I woke up, I saw Tris commenting on this in our personal Discord. I'm like, what on earth? What's happened?
Tris, it's not April Fool's. You can't do this to
No. A few more months.
I think,
People are saying...
this.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, this is going to be like the random what did I just wake up news award for this year for me.
So far,
Very
yeah.
hard to top it.
Starting off with a bang, dear God. Real quick, we did get a super chat from Abdul Rahman, I believe, for 29 rupees. So thank you so much, Abdul, for that. That was before we were even live, so much appreciated. CEO asks, how many times have we used this thumbnail of what's it? Phil Spencer at the cashier. We've used it, God, probably, what, 6-7 times now, but we never expected to use it on a purchase as big as this, so I don't think.
Yeah. Bell asks, so what does that mean for you in covering Activision Blizzard games? Well, I guess Phil Spencer is above Bobby Kotick now, but we'll have to evaluate it as it goes on, so...
Yeah, so that is actually a great question. That's something we're still evaluating ourselves. Obviously, this is new, so we're discussing it. We haven't... You know, I'm sure we'll talk about this more as we go into the discussion, but just to address this. So in the meantime, we are still only covering, for now, this specific news. So that nothing itself has really changed, especially as Tom mentioned, we don't fully know what's happening here. It sounds like Bobby Kotick is remaining as CEO, at least for the duration, until Microsoft fully takes over Activision Blizzard sometime in the next year, basically, by, I think, June of 2023. Which isn't a huge surprise, honestly. What would be a huge surprise is if he remains on afterward. I don't think that's going to happen. I'd be shocked if that ends up being the case. But I'm kind of getting into like the meat of the discussion here.
Yeah, sure, discussion. Yeah.
Point is, yeah, nothing really has changed for us in the short term. We're going to evaluate it as things goes on. But long term, it seems like this is a better change overall, and that means we probably will be able to cover Activision Blizzard games again. So, all right. I think it's time we officially start this discussion. I'm sure we'll get into all the stuff we just touched on and far more. So, once again, in case you missed it, Activision-Blizzard has been bought by Microsoft now for $68.7 billion. That's going to give Xbox access to all their IPs and all that once they fully take over, once it's fully approved, again, sometime in the next year and a half or so. Huge news, huge deal. I had so many thoughts thinking about this. Here's just some of the thoughts I had. Well, that's one way to recover Activision Blizzard's stock price. Then I'm like, that's an ungodly amount of money. Disney paid $4 billion for Star Wars, and this dwarfs that by a huge amount. Next, Xbox owns, they will now own Pitfall, of course being their Mario killer. They can finally compete with Mario now. And now Crash Bandicoot could finally come to Smash. Microsoft has been super kind to their IPs, of course, obviously, with Nintendo and Smash specifically. But Smash is now done at the worst possible time. The possible dream is actually dead for now. But anyways, those are some of my thoughts. On top of the fact that this is kind of exciting news, just because it's big news. Big news is kind of inherently exciting. With that being said, it's also concerning because it's just another takeover, which shrinks the industry size further, which in general is not a great thing. While I may be excited for what Xbox could do with these properties, it's also concerning because that's making them even bigger than they are now. They're now the third biggest gaming company behind Tencent and Sony. But on the other hand, it's like, well, Activision Blizzard kind of sucks, and this might end up being a really good thing in terms of how the company's run, and resolving the issues that have surfaced from Activision over the past couple of years. So those are some of my thoughts. But Tris, you covered the news. What were you thinking going into this?
So, as I even said in the news update itself, I'm conflicted, honestly. Because on one hand, you look at it as, okay, this is Xbox doing a massive acquisition.
Right.
And, I mean, the extra zero on the billion is very obvious just how big this is. I mean, you even compared it to Disney's recent one of Star Wars. Like, it's a lot, honestly. This is huge. And I don't think this is going to go unnoticed. Or unaddressed, I should say.
What do you mean
I think
by that?
this is... So, Microsoft has been on the... in the last few years, with more and more acquisitions, they've kind of been garnering some attention for becoming a potential monopoly. Again. They've already been accused of that several times over the last couple decades. But I think it's going to, therefore, need to be addressed again, where the government's going to take a look at it and be like, okay, but is this fine to happen? Now, considering they haven't stopped. Bigger ones like Sony or Disney, I don't think they'll actually do anything about this. I don't think anything will happen in terms of the government stepping in related to this, but it's enough to warrant a discussion about it, that this is really big, and it does paint Microsoft and Xbox as another potential monopoly in the industry. So that is one way to look at it, of more IPs for Xbox isn't necessarily the best thing. The other side of it, which is why I'm conflicted, is this could really help all the issues going on at Activision Blizzard, because now they'll have to eventually answer to Xbox's and Microsoft's code of company culture, or whatever you want to call it, and they'll have to abide by that and work within it, unless they, want to have a ton of layoffs and replacements, which hopefully will fix and address some issues over there. But to the exact extent of that, outside of the business talk to it all, we don't really know.
Right. Yeah, they've been pretty vague on that, and it's hilarious to just how Phil Spencer had been apparently teasing this the entire time without any of us realizing it. We're reevaluating our relationship. I never took that to mean we're buying the entire company. But yeah, you're right, Tris. Like, this does raise any number of points. Including is Microsoft getting too big, in the gaming sphere? Tom, what do you think of this?
Yeah, it's like that explains why Phil Spencer was the only one to comment really on it recently.
Yeah.
It's like, was Activision Blizzard on his shelf at one point?
Phil was just at Safeway one day, like picking up some groceries. Like, hey, look, there's Activision Blizzard. I should pick that up on my way out.
I wonder who approached who first. Like Activision Blizzard, like, hey, do you want to buy us? Or is it Microsoft like, hey, are you available? What was it, Tris?
So I think, we know that, Xbox is always looking to expand its collection, let's put it that way. But I think Activision Blizzard has been under such bad rep this last couple years now with all of this, I legitimately think they were starting to dive themselves into the dirt. They were getting a lot of bad rep. They were losing investors. There were a lot of problems going on. And I think selling themselves, so advertising themselves as for sale, so to say, was probably the only way to really save them and let some other company deal with the problem, some higher up.
Yeah.
And Xbox was the most willing to do it because of how big they are and how relatively easy it probably is for them to do it.
That's the thing. I think that's why I never considered this a possibility, because Activision-Blizzard is a gigantic company in terms of like game developers. Of course, they're not nearly as big as Microsoft, obviously. But I don't think I ever once considered them being bought out, just given how big they are and how much of an investment that is. I don't think this must be. I don't know for sure. This must be the biggest gaming acquisition ever. I think I can't think of anything bigger.
It's up there.
Yeah,
it's up there for sure.
And so that's one way to resolve the problem. Like you have. I mean, this is for. I mean, so I think I agree with you, Tress. I mean, I'm guessing that this is Activision. This was Activision started it, but who knows? It could have been anyone starting the talks. But it definitely works out for Bobby Kotick. This ends as like assuming his reign at the company ends when Microsoft fully takes over, which I fully expect it to. This ends his legacy on a positive note, unfortunately, and especially not just. Not necessarily publicly, but definitely for the shareholders. The company is gaining a ton of value from this. Like the stock price is through the roof right now. It just shot up like nothing this morning. So from Bobby's perspective, it makes a ton of sense. He gets to leave on the best possible note for himself, selling the company, to another that is obviously going to take, presumably going to take good care of it. And basically, it's the best note he can leave on his legacy, given everything else that's happened in the past year. Which again, objectively still terrible, but
yeah, I do think though that's why we don't know the status of like what's going to happen to Kotick after this, because I think legally, in quotes, because I'm not sure if it's exactly legally, but it affects legal things, they probably can't say, because if they say, oh, he's going to be leaving, that's also going to affect stocks and prices and all these different things. Saying until this deal fully comes to a close, things are operating as normal, keeps things at a baseline level without influencing things. And I don't think they're allowed to say what'll happen to him until after that point and he announces, I don't know, retirement or something, because he'll probably be able to do that easily. But yeah, I think it's not a case of they're choosing not to say. I think it's they specifically cannot comment on that right now.
Mm-hmm. He could probably retire easily a decade ago or more.
Yeah.
It's I guess the news too, though, it's good to hear, because that is the biggest chance to clean up the company and bring change, I think, compared to other possible things. Like, I didn't think this was a possibility for them being bought, like Andre said. So my other thought was just the end of AAA is kind of nearing in a way. Like there'll be so few extra companies, like it'll be even more niche now. So that's one thing to consider in the future. Like I guess it'll still be around, but not the same as it used to be.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. Real quick, I'm seeing some comments about how Bobby Kotick said he'll retain his status. To clarify, as we brought up, but may have been missed, they've only covered to the extent until it's fully acquired by Microsoft. They did not comment beyond that point what Bobby's status is at the company, and there's almost no way, given what we know, the public comments from Phil Spencer and others, there is almost no way Bobby Kotick stays on in any capacity. I'm sure this is a full rolling over the company, giving it to another. This is his way of changing CEOs in the best possible light for him. Like, he didn't have to pull back from the company. He's able to just say, yeah, we're selling it off, and now Microsoft's in charge. Because he's the CEO currently, there's no room for him there at Microsoft. He's not going to be the CEO still after Microsoft takes over. So, beyond that, though, I saw some comments talking about Monopoly in the comments, people going back and forth, like, is it Monopoly, is it not? Tris brought up some good points earlier. My stance is that, of course it'll be looked into, it has to. I don't think there's a chance it doesn't pass, though. Just based on...
Yeah, no, this definitely will.
Yeah, the thing is, like, Microsoft is probably... even though this will make them the third biggest gaming company, in terms of, like, as a gaming platform, at least console-wise, which it goes beyond that. Obviously, there's a PC space. But Microsoft isn't even the biggest in the console space. So yeah, I don't think there's any real concerns of it being a monopoly. There's so many game developers out there that even with all the consolidation we've been seeing over the past few years, there's still a lot of diversity out there, and that's not even into account, for the indie scene as well, of course. So yeah, I don't think there's a chance in hell that this doesn't get approved by U.S. regulators.
Mm-hmm. It's just a more matter of it's going to be looked into. We're going to be hearing about it being looked into, and it's worth mentioning because of all the acquisitions they've made over the last few years. It's becoming more and more notable.
If Microsoft starts forcing Internet Explorer on my Xbox, then we're gonna have words.
No, it's okay. They'll push Microsoft Edge first, but if you have an older Xbox, it'll have to be Microsoft Explorer. God. It finally hits it late. I do want to mention, because I keep seeing comments about it since we're addressing the chat. I see a bunch of people mentioning like how this would affect some of Activision's games coming to Nintendo and things like that. And it's worth noting, I have a quote here that I found, which is from Phil Spencer commenting on Exclusivity. He says, "I'll just say to players out there who are playing Activision-Blizzard games on Sony's platforms, it's not our intent to pull communities away from that platform, and we remained committed to that." So, combine that with how I believe it was Phil Spencer and Xbox developers that pushed Cuphead, their like exclusive game, to be put on the Switch. I think they're still going to be pretty good about multi-platform and non-exclusive, and I'm sure some things will be exclusive and they'll probably be timed exclusives, but I don't think this means if you want to play any Activision games or Blizzard games, you'll have to get the latest Xbox. Maybe if you want to play them first, but yeah.
There is some like mixed messaging, not on this specifically, just in general, because Microsoft, on the one hand, Microsoft has been fairly generous in having their IPs being available across multiple platforms. Look at Minecraft. That's been available everywhere. I don't think Microsoft or Xbox or any of their platforms has gained a perk that others haven't with Minecraft. But then there's also the fact that with Bethesda, they did kind of like step back, and Starfield, I believe, unless it changed since then, that's a Microsoft exclusive now, right? I believe. So
yes, I think so.
I would honestly be shocked if we don't see some of the IPs they're acquiring end up being Microsoft exclusives. I don't think all of them. I think it makes sense in some cases, again, like with Minecraft, to keep it multi-platform. Call of Duty probably will always forever remain multi-platform, but I don't know. Like that's an IP you put on Microsoft that just gave or on Xbox, you just gave your platform a huge exclusive. That's another big reason to pick it up. Like honestly, the biggest to kind of like shift points here a little bit. This is a bigger problem for Sony, I think, than it is for Nintendo. Nintendo, I don't think this affects them much at all. If I were Sony, I'd be a little concerned right now, even though they are bigger in terms of gaming than Microsoft, which it doesn't seem that way, but they are, I guess. I mean, based in terms of developers, I guess. I'd be a little worried about this. So,
with Call of Duty, you can get any DLC. You can say it's going to be first on Xbox for a long time. It doesn't affect Nintendo. It affects Sony. I guess Sony will have to start focusing more on like a couple of first-person shooters and stuff again too. Like probably just making them themselves.
Well, they have a bunch of IPs for it, at least. Killzone, and then what's the other one that they had that was big for a while?
Resistance.
Yeah, that's a Resistance thing.
Killzone's the bigger one.
I think I did guides for both of those when I worked at GameSpot. But yeah, exactly. And even if they have like no intention of changing like the communities now, like this deal is still potentially a year and a half out from closing, with an infinite amount of time after that in which things could easily change, So yes, nothing may change in the near term. Long term, who freaking knows?
I think Tom makes a good point. This pretty much won't affect Nintendo much at all. It'll affect Sony more than anything else. The most we might see in terms of it affecting Nintendo is if there is a new like Crash or Spyro, maybe like the most recent ones, they just won't hit the Switch right away.
I just want to point out too, real quick, like it'd be a good way to say like you want Call of Duty, well, it needs to connect to Game Pass to make that work, or something like that. In that aspect, I mean, there could be potentially that leverage in the future if there is some hardball being played there. So,
I mean, we know companies have a track record for that too, with like the Epic Game Store, for example. A lot of games that debuted on the Epic Game Store are owned by Epic. Even if you get them on consoles, you still need to sign in or make an Epic Games account. So there's precedent for that already in the industry.
think Portal 2 with Steam, when that was on PlayStation, that was like letting they made a deal where Steam accounts could be on PlayStation. Oh, we got a super chat, Andre.
Yeah, for $5 from Still Alive. Thank you for the super chat, Still Alive. It says, will they bring back World of Warcraft at the brink of extinction? They had a max exodus for the past couple of years. See any good things on that front? Did you play World of Warcraft at Ultras?
I have not, but I have a good amount of friends that are like really into it that have been talking about the situation, so I can comment. I can actually comment a little bit from a knowledge I have from my friends. The issue is that this is still like a year out from having a big effect. So I don't think if WoW comes back, I don't think it would be bringing it back from the brink of extinction. It would be doing something new with it, or something with the IP, or after like a lull, then bringing it back as something new again, which I'm sure would upset a lot of people, but that might be the best they can do after the last few years of constantly making people drop off from it. There's a reason why Final Fantasy XIV has gotten super big, and it's because all the WoW players went to that.
Although if they bring it to Xbox could be a great way to like inject new life into it, I think.
Yeah.
Like one of the reasons, I can only speak for myself, of course, but one of the reasons why I haven't gotten into many more like PC MMOs is I don't want to play on the PC. I prefer playing games on my console on the TV. So like making that part of Game Pass or something, if that were ever to be the case. I mean, I think it would be. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if. I don't want to speak in the near term, but like World of Warcraft, regardless, is a big recognizable IP. It would be very silly of Microsoft, if they don't consider doing something more with that at some point beyond whatever it is. I think there's I imagine Microsoft's like looking at this portfolio of IPs now, and be like, yeah, let's try. Let's see what we can do with this.
There's absolutely a lot they can do, and we keep mentioning Game Pass. We haven't even properly talked about that. That's a huge potential like hook right there. Just bringing all these things to Game Pass, even if it's just making past titles available on it. That's a lot right there that will definitely be very attractive to consumers.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even run down the whole list of IPs Activision or Microsoft acquires here. There are so freaking many. Not all of them are gigantic, of course, but there are a ton of IPs, some of which we haven't seen in a few years or in quite some time, that could possibly open the door to try something new with as well. It's absurd how much value Microsoft is getting here. I mean, I guess we know the value, but that Microsoft put on it at least. What's interesting is I was looking at the financials for Activision, and I believe in the last quarter reported they made 600. I think it was like close to $700 million. Like that was their gross, which is impressive. But like assuming that averages out to, let's say, $2 billion a year, maybe it's more. I don't know. Let's say even $3 billion to be generous. I assume that's gonna take Microsoft a while to like earn that back in a monetary sense. Like, I mean, I imagine they could probably squeeze more out of it, given the fact that they won't have redundant overhead now. They can get rid of all of the execs, of course, at Activision, I imagine. But still, like this is a long-term investment. They're banking on being around for a while, which I think only adds more strength to the Xbox brand as well. Like, yeah, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and real quick, there's one more super chat from Rafe or Alfaro for $5. Thank you. It says, "Hi guys, with the Activision-Blizzard acquisition news, let's hope we get a Banjo collection a la Crash and Spyro remasters. Cheers."
Yes, I mean, it has nothing to do with this, but yes, please. I want a Banjo full collection remaster. It'd be amazing.
You say it has nothing to do with this, but it actually could, because, I mean, Toys for Bob was the one that did the Crash and Spyro remasters, wasn't it?
I forgot. That's right. They are owned by Activision. I totally forgot.
And
good
in
point,
recent
Rafe.
years, or earlier last year, rather, it was announced that, Toys for Bob is just working on Call of Duty now, and everyone, like, lost faith in more Crash or Spyro. But now that this acquisition is happening, they can completely shift around studios and who's working on what, and they can absolutely decide to give Toys for Bob one of their own IPs instead of just an Activision IP.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I actually forgot about that. I mean, yeah, something we haven't even really touched on directly yet is this isn't just an IP acquisition. This is a multi-studio acquisition. This is massive, and if this all ends up leading to a Banjo remake, then it was all worth it, obviously. I mean, obviously Microsoft could use any number of studios for the Banjo remaster. But that's an interesting perspective I never considered. We have another super chat here. Matthew Cruz for $5. Thank you, Matthew. Who says, do you think Sony is at risk after this? Will they put themselves up for sale to another big company like Disney? No. I mean, they're not at any immediate risk. Any risk they're at is a long-term risk. It'll be a very gradual thing. And I don't see a future in which they put themselves up for sale, not anytime soon. That's not to say it couldn't happen. Anything's technically possible, but Sony's a big company, and we'd be talking acquisition even larger than this. Yeah, I don't foresee that happening. I don't foresee them being in any major danger anytime soon.
No, the thing with Sony is more so than Xbox, they're much more like internationally based. So like they're not just a US company. So I think if anything happens to Sony, it would be more so rather than them merging with some other company, they would just look to acquire more studios themselves. More big names. And that would be the most that Sony does, is acquire some big exclusivities themselves.
Yep.
How much would it be for Take-Two or whatever?
Oh gosh.
Grand Theft Auto?
A lot. That's what it would be. It would be a lot.
Yeah, that would be okay. If whoever buys Grand Theft Auto, that's when the other company should be fearful. That's when it gets a little scary, I think, for the others in particular. Yeah, if Grand Theft Auto were ever exclusive, dear God, that would be a huge, and that would suck for everyone else. That would be a bad thing for the industry. Yeah, so this is still like, I'm still like amazed hearing about this news. Like, it is such a shocker. I never expected, like, we haven't even talked about like Activision's legacy, ignoring more recent events. They've been around forever. They've been making games since before the Atari 2600, I believe. I owned some of their games on the Atari 2600. I didn't have Pitfall, but I had River Raid, and that game was awesome. So hey, maybe we'll get a new one of those. But yeah, I mean, they have such a massive legacy, being around forever. Like I every now and then I'll pop in, buy like an old game at the used game store. I'll pop it in, like the Activision splash screen will come up. I'm like, that's right, they've been making games forever plus, So it's just wild that now that a company with that legacy, that history, and of that size and stature is being, now taken out of its own independence, for better or worse, and given, it is now just a subsidiary of yet a larger company. And that's where, like, this is such, like, I have such a mixed reaction to this. Even again, putting aside more recent issues with Activision, just because, like, consolidation isn't, I don't want to say it's always a bad thing, but in an overall sense, it's never really a great thing, And again, the industry is still shrinking from this. So I think it was a smart move on behalf of all the players. By that, I mean not us. I mean the bigger players, the ones involved in the deal. But I think, long term for people like us who play games, it could possibly be a bad thing. Just kind of like in a grand universal sense, But it's impossible to gauge this early on.
Because like Akuma Kurosawa said, consolidation is bad for the industry. I mean, it could be good in the sense that they can share technology between them potentially and resources, but I think it's possibly bad for consumers in the end, in that we get less competition in the industry when it's done like this. That's probably where it's bad. And sometimes, like when a company buys another company, you see less from them in the future. Thinking back to ones like Buy and Rare and stuff like that. So, but in this case, I think to fix the problems at Activision-Blizzard, like, that's more important, really, in the grand scheme of things right now.
It's interesting you say that, because obviously it's true, but on the other hand, I imagine it had such, such a little, how do I want to put this?
Such little weight on the overall
exactly.
purpose.
Like I'm sure that influenced. Like I'm sure that's what started this whole conversation. But when it comes to like actually buying a company, like they're not thinking about it. They're like, oh, we can repair Activision's culture, which will happen. Yeah. But that's not why they're doing this. Obviously, they're doing it because hey, that's a ton of IPs and companies, and now we own them, and that's great. So yes, there are likely going to be secondary side effects of this, or benefits from this. Getting Bobby Kotick out, great. Seemingly, again, we're only speculating. That seems to be the case, I imagine.
Well, real quick in that, like Kotaku had pointed out, the New York Times had a quote from him where he said he'll be available as needed after the deal closes. So that's kind of like that's a way of saying like I'll be on an island somewhere.
Yep.
Maybe I'll check my phone every once in a while for our messages.
Yeah, that's totally right. And I can guarantee you he's not going to be getting any calls from Phil Spencer or anyone. I feel like once this acquisition closes, that's it for Bobby. So in any case, yeah, that's why it's such a mixed reaction, because I'm generally kind of like against acquisitions, but then, you know, at the same time, like it's hard not to be excited at points. Like, hey, it's something new, it's something different. What can Microsoft do with these IPs? Of course, the culture will improve with Activision, which I mean, hopefully, which is great. That is all good. And then of course, even I have to admit too, like when I hear about Nintendo buying a company, I'm like, oh, awesome! Like we'll get more Nintendo games, you know. But it's like, you know, still like the industry is shrinking as a result of that, you know. And yeah, but I mean, at least as of right now, the industry is still fairly sizable. There are still like a decent amount of like independent developers out there. So it's just like the kind of direction of how things are going. Like it seems like the amount of acquisitions of the past few years has really stepped up, and with this being the biggest one yet, as far as I'm aware, it's like, is this where the industry's heading? Is everything going to be acquired by something else at some point? I had a comment I highlighted here. Zachary Breen that says, Sony and Microsoft minding their own business, Tencent looming over them owning the entire foreign world. And that's that's actually a great and topical point. Like, Tencent feels like they came out of freaking nowhere. Somehow they became the biggest gaming company on the planet. And it makes you wonder, like, what's next? You know, what is going to happen at this point?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk with that. There's a lot to talk on with that, honestly. But I think people keep raising up good points. Like, you know, there are indie studios. There's always new studios being made and rising up. So while the industry, on one hand, looks like it's constantly getting smaller with less competition as acquisitions happen, new companies pop up constantly and grow to different sizes. I mean, look at Yacht Club Games after Shovel Knight, for example. It's a slow process, and I'm sure it's almost like, you know, working in waves. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, because of all this happening. Now, I do also see in chat people saying, oh, in response to this, Nintendo should acquire more studios, and I'm not sure I agree with that personally.
Yeah, I think as we commented earlier, I mean, it's possible there's some, like, you know, long-term negative benefit to Nintendo from all this. I don't think they're too worried themselves. I mean, who knows what they're actually thinking? But if I were Nintendo, I wouldn't be too concerned. These are largely IPs that aren't even associated with Nintendo by and large these days anyway. And Nintendo has its own like strong stable of IP that I don't think this will make any meaningful difference. And particularly if Phil Spencer stays true to what he said, where they're not looking at any change in communities at this time. So, you know, Crash Bandicoot could potentially still come to Nintendo Switch. You know, Skylander, Spyro, those things. Especially like when the demographics there. You know, like games like Crash Bandicoot very likely would do better on Switch than they may on Xbox. And it'd be kind of silly to close off a potential revenue stream just to bolster your library a bit farther. You know, unless you're really thinking truly super long term. Yeah, and in some sense too, as I mentioned earlier, like this could open the door to like some new collaborations, like. For whenever the next Smash Brothers game is, maybe we'll finally get Crash Bandicoot in there. And someone mentioned earlier, for one, it is weird to think that Banjo and Crash are part of the same family now, or soon to be.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah, isn't that weird to think? And how Crash, and it's just weird to think that Crash, which was once basically a Sony character, is now all the way over with Microsoft. It's just this weird family tree thing, and it's all bizarre.
A green
what you're
Bandicoot.
saying, yeah.
Wait, sorry,
what you're saying is when
I missed it.
I said a green Bandicoot.
So what we're saying is we need a new Crash Racing it's almost like Diddy Kong Racing. So it has Crash, it has Spyro, it has Banjo-Kazooie and Conker, and
there
more.
you do. That's how you bring back all those IPs they have that they've been neglecting. We just needed kart racer with all these. They've already got one with Crash, as you're saying, so do it, make it happen. That's if there's one thing that comes of this discussion, I hope it's that. So, what other thoughts? Did you guys have any other thoughts about this at all that we maybe haven't addressed yet, or?
I think it's, since we know this deal won't close until the end of fiscal year 2023, or by the end. So sometime between this July and the end of next June in 2023, I don't think we're going to see a lot more news on the status of things at Activision.
No.
Change for a while. Like, we're really not going to see much. But what we are going to see is we're going to see any sort of further developments on that front. People are going to immediately tie to Microsoft more than anything else, good or bad. Even though the only bearing they may have on it right now is, hey, since this is in progress, pointing at Bobby Kotick, start making changes. And that's it right now.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, I hate to give credit for this, but it is like ultimately a smart decision for any number of ways. But I think this will kind of like, I mean, I think the Activision news had already been, quieting down a bit, and I imagine this will only further that because, although again they haven't confirmed that Bobby won't be there after the acquisition, I can't imagine anything but that happening with him not being there. And then, it's kind of like things are changing, that kind of lessens the impact of any stories that make, or any further developments that may come up. Maybe they won't. I don't know. I don't want to predict the future here. But it does seem kind of like a way of softening any future blows, potentially, if there were any more to come. Just because it's like, there's, changes in the air. A year and a half from now, like, it will be completely different, presumably. Hopefully. Mm-hmm. And, we'll see. So.
We did get a super chat.
We did.
I know Tom's been reading it.
I think Rainbows for $4.99. Yep. Thank you. What do you think will happen with Activision's esports division? I would say that would probably just go the course for now. I mean, unless Microsoft wants to shut it down, basically. Like, it probably will just stay running as normal.
Yeah.
I don't see esports changing too much. They might shake up the management behind it, but I don't see esports actually changing that much. Activision is a huge player in that, so.
Yeah, I don't see that changing either. It'd be kind of silly to do anything. I mean, it's something successful, it'd be kind of silly to mess with that, right? So I don't see them changing that either. Yeah, they're a huge player in that space, and I think Microsoft wants to be in that space, so it makes sense to retain it. We have a second super chat, or another super chat from Don Otaku for $5. Thank you so much, who says, they actually have confirmed that he will be there for the transition period and then make his exit. So that's what we've been discussing, but I don't believe, correct us if we're wrong, but from everything we've seen, they've confirmed he will be there for the transition, as you mentioned, but they haven't commented beyond that point yet, except for what I think Tom mentioned earlier, or someone mentioned earlier, he'll be available for, to help beyond that point. As
needed.
Yeah, as needed. But we don't know exactly.
They have all but officially said he will only be there for the transitionary period. Everything being said implies he won't be after the deal closes. But it's not properly said. Probably because they can't say it.
I mean, whether or not they can or can't, like, they don't want headlines being like, I don't think they may be trying to avoid headlines like Bobby's out or whatever, like Bobby's leaving Activision. That's what they're avoiding, and then he can announce his exit at whatever point in the future, and he'll be like, well, duh, obviously, right? So they're just managing, I think, the story right now, and whether there's more to it or not for legal reasons, I don't know. But yeah, like I said, I think he is effectively leaving. It's just we have to entertain the possibility that maybe he won't, just in case they haven't said it. So yeah. Someone had a comment here I wanted to read. What was it? I don't know what it was, but Scholar Rose says Nintendo and Xbox should team up. That's how you take on Tencent. You get Microsoft and Nintendo becoming one. It is kind of funny to think now, how funny it seemed, how laughable it seemed when Microsoft tried buying Nintendo all those years, as they recently brought back up again in the Xbox 20th anniversary celebration documentaries, which were amazing, by the way. Go watch those if you haven't. They're on, I think they're on YouTube. Just how funny that seemed when now they bought a company many, many, many times Nintendo's worth, which seemingly effortlessly. And I remember the comment I wanted to read now. It was because someone had commented like Activision's at their lowest point, like they can only go up from here, and at least from a PR perspective, that's 100% true. So, Don Otaku with another $5 super chat. Thank you again, Don, who says, just like how they couldn't say Bethesda games were exclusive until after the acquisition closed, I think they can't outright say it. Yeah, I think that's basically it, Dan. Or sorry, Don. Thank you for the super chat. But yeah, that's exactly it. There's avoiding commenting on it, but it's pretty obvious. If you read the tea leaves, that's exactly what's happening. So, Abel says, Xbox mascot fighter is now inevitable. That's a great point. I mean, for better or worse, like, this does open some doors, and, like, with them having such a ridiculous amount of IPs, you feel like it'd be a waste opportunity if we don't see some kind of crossover attempt here, right?
Oh, that's much better than my epic warthog mount for WoW idea. So,
well, I mean, we have Smash, we've had PlayStation All-Star Battle Royale, and then we've had other companies doing similarly lately with Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl and Multiversus coming soon which is like the WB one. I could definitely see Xbox throwing their hat in the ring there within the next few years after the acquisition happens, after it fully happens. Because they got a lot they could use for it.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of game would that look like? What game would we want?
I mean, I think it'd be a fighter to compete or to attract the fans of all those other ones. I don't know if it would be a platform fighter in the same way, but I think it would definitely be some sort of fighter to attract the fans of all those other ones.
Those Smash clones are all the rage. That's dismissive. All those Smash copies are all the rage these days. With Nickelodeon, the upcoming DC one, and then and of course there was PlayStation All Stars, a few years ago now at this point. I think the possibility for that happening just greatly increased, particularly with the fact that they just gained some really classic like platforming style characters like the Crash Gang, Spyro, the Skylanders in general. So they have a really strong cast now. Potentially get Banjo in there in his own fighting game or his own Xbox fighting game.
Cuphead in there.
What? Cuphead? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
Cuphead.
You can get Steve in there too again. So GC Gamer 18 says there is a possibility that this could be rejected because of how big the deal is. What are your thoughts about being affected by antitrust?
That's kind of what I was touching upon earlier, of how it's at least going to be observed by the U.S. government to kind of see if it really is, worth happening, or if it's going to happen, or if they're going to need to break it down at any point. And I mean, given that they haven't stopped Disney at any point, or they haven't stopped Sony with other ones, I don't see them stopping this one at all. The most I could see happening is they divide up what Activision-Blizzard is to lower the cost of it all. So rather than getting all of Activision-Blizzard, maybe they just get like 3 of their studios, for example. I don't think they would go that far. I think they're still just going to get it, and antitrust laws are kind of just going to hand wave it as whatever. Take that as you will. That's kind of not necessarily a good thing, not necessarily a bad thing. It just is what it is from observing this kind of thing over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I will say quickly, I think the only one I ever heard of not really being approved or having trouble still is NVIDIA buying ARM for processors. Is that those are already like 2 giant companies in a small space. I would guess maybe ARM has more. I would have a similar impact comparatively to Activision Blizzard. But we got another super chat from Don Otaku. Thank you very much. $5.
Thank you, Don.
Killer Instinct 2 is reportedly in the works, and I can see a lot more guest characters getting added. Crash fighting Conquer would be amazing. Conquer alone would be amazing. Thank you, Don.
Yeah.
That's actually a great point. I actually have forgotten about the Killer Instinct 2 rumors, even though I was just talking about this with a friend a couple days ago. That is almost effectively their crossover fighter already. That is almost their Smash Brothers. Like I was just randomly recently replaying or playing for the first time actually Killer Instinct on Xbox, but I never played it before. I played the original arcade and Super Nintendo games, of course, and 64. And I totally forgot that it had like the Arbiter in there. It has a Battletoad. There's some other characters in there that I can't remember that I never expected to see in the fighting games. There's already basically basically its own mascot fighter in a sense, and they can totally just lean into that for the next one. It's actually kind of fitting, but the Killer Instinct cast, for whatever reason, already felt like one of the more eclectic casts of like the core fighting games. So just throwing in on all these other more random characters didn't really seem all that out of place. So they could just go harder on that for Killer Instinct 2. So We have another super chat here. Oh,
quite
sorry,
a few more, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say we have quite a few more super
Oh
chats
my
to get
God.
through now.
The super chats are coming hot and fast. Thank you so much, everyone. Much appreciated. Chris Berg 85 donated 50 of something. Thank you. 50 Nokias, I think. they
Microsoft doesn't own Nokia anymore.
Good point. They state that, do you think Microsoft will revive Guitar Hero now that they own Activision? Maybe a Guitar Hero remastered. That is an interesting question, because, like, on the one hand, you look at what that IP was, it was massive. On the other hand, it's like, it's hard to imagine that coming back, you know? Like, I feel like we kind of left the age of the plastic accessories behind, you know?
Yeah, my husband would love it. Go ahead, Tom.
I'll say you're gonna have to clean it when you pass it around to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. That's in today's day and age, that's a bit more difficult. I know my husband would love it if Guitar Hero came back, but I think Epic Games owns Rock Band, and nothing's happened with that since that acquisition. Right. Not that that necessarily tells us what's going to happen here, but it's something I could see Xbox doing, of bringing back the old ones, as like making them available again. Maybe having like the peripheral made again, or reselling the old ones, but I'm not sure, honestly. I think it's almost a too good to be true kind of hope there, sadly.
I think, unfortunately, Tris, in this case, my guess would be that it's just too big of a commitment to bring back just for a small demographic.
Yeah.
Because these are big accessories. You're asking a lot of retailers to store these giant boxes for them, to hold these plastic guitars and whatever else.
Yeah.
I think it's a big ask. It'd be cool. Maybe they can find something else to do with the brand. But it's just hard. I mean, it's hard to imagine until it happens. So maybe it could happen, but I think we just kind of left that. Like, we had that, like, there was like a good 5, 6, 7 years there where just like everything was plastic accessories. You had the Wii Zapper, you had drums, you had DJ kits, right? And then it just all disappeared, because I think we're tired of taking up space with this crap. And especially now, like, for at least the immediate future, like, the supply chain's completely messed up right now in all kinds of ways. We've seen it affect all kinds of companies. So if it does happen, it wouldn't be for a long while. So I mean, I was gonna say maybe on this like 20th anniversary, but we're not too far away from that at this point.
We're not too far from that.
I know, it's scary.
Yeah, shipping containers cost a lot of money, and ports are kind of screwed right now. I had one friend at a warehouse saying they had a shipment, and it was like full of rice cookers or something, and they just had to abandon it because the cost of bringing it in was more than the rice cookers. But anyway, I saved it. We had a super chat from Mega Nerd X. Thank you very much for $4.99. I know people don't like this, but I hope it brings some exclusives. I like exclusives, and depending on the title, it could get me to buy a Series X. I do like exclusives from time to time, although I hate it when I don't have the system. So that's why I don't mind so much when they're on everything. But it does make it easier to point out which one is gives more discussion on the topic, like which one to get.
Yeah, there's something about exclusives that like trigger, I think, at least mine, and I'm guessing a lot of our like just reptilian brain is like, oh, it's exclusive. Yeah, that's awesome. Even though like for us, it's like objectively bad. We have to go out and buy all these platforms to play these games. But there is something, it's like, oh, they're taking it seriously, you know, or this is a big get from Microsoft. Or maybe they're investing more resources into it because it is exclusive, you know. There's a few ways to read into it. So as for the specific question of do we think... sorry, I missed it. It's off screen now. What was the exact question, Tom? Just they're excited for it?
I just got rid of all saving other ones, but just thought of, like, do you guys think it's good to have exclusives, basically? Or that?
I mean, it's good for Microsoft, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's good for them.
Yeah. I don't know if it's good for the rest of us, but... I mean, I guess if you're part of the Microsoft ecosystem already, which a lot of people are, especially with Game Pass, it actually could be a very good thing. So, like this, I mean, we haven't touched on it much, but this really could add just a ton more value to Game Pass too. I mean, that's a really interesting thing about Microsoft's business model now, is they're technically able to compete with these same games, despite them not being exclusive, because they have the inherent benefit of getting them out for effectively free. Obviously, it's not free, but if you're already a Game Pass subscriber, you're getting those games for free. So that's a huge benefit over buying on another platform. So it is kind of like a more what's the word I'm looking for? Like a not devious, but like kind of like a more stealth way of like competing. You know what I mean? Because like every acquisition just bolsters their Game Pass library. So
yeah. That's where we're talking about the overall cost of Activision Blizzard wasn't that much, but if you convince more people to buy Game Pass and your systems, that's where the value comes in.
Exactly. All right, we got a couple more super chats, I think. Chris Tronbot for $5. Thank you, Chris. It says, "Hey GX crew, my question for all of you is, how do you think cross-platform titles will continue from the Activision or Blizzard sides of this acquisition?" That's a good one. What do we think?
I think cross-platform will still happen. Like, I think because Xbox has been pretty good about that, to my understanding. Games that are available on multiple platforms, they're usually cross-compatible or cross-play enabled at least, and I think that'll still be the case. And I think multi-platform releases will still happen. At the very least, PC and Xbox will still happen, and depending on the game, Sony and or Nintendo are probably still likely to. For the games that are usually multi-platform, I don't see that changing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think as long as it's on a PlayStation or whatever, they'll try for cross-platform play.
Yeah. I don't see much changing in that sense for at least a while. Mega Dragon 101 in the $5 super chat, thank you, says, "Do you think with this acquisition, Activision will get rid of Battle.net or Battle.net and put their games on Game Pass?" I didn't even think about
That's
this.
true. That's a good point, actually, because Battle.net is basically the Activision. It's Activision's version of like the Epic Game Store, the launcher, basically, or Blizzard's, I should say. And getting rid of that and putting it on Game Pass or tying it into Game Pass, or even just a Game Pass account, that makes a lot of sense, actually, to do. It would probably not happen right away. Like, this would be probably talked about after the acquisition fully happens. Then it's in 3 months, this will happen kind of thing. So I could definitely see that happening. It wouldn't be immediately right away, though.
I would say maybe longer term than that, because for that... it was a good Blizzard launcher, really. So there's a lot of value in keeping customers around who like that a lot. And not unless your titles are really strong at the time to convince people to move over. Like, some people might not move over. So I think with that one being around so long, they'll keep it until it's like they're in a really good position.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Zach Brain says, "Sony may now actually start to welcome cross-platform from fear alone." Like I said, I think Sony has the most to be worried about from this whole thing. It'll be interesting to see what, if any, reaction they have to this. I mean, any reaction they have, we won't see for a while, I imagine. But just to see how things, it is interesting. Like, regardless of whether you think this is good or bad, like, it's interesting, and this is going to change the landscape of gaming. Once this closes, so this is a big deal. I just don't know how much it's going to affect things. Like, if they continue to release games on every platform, it may not end up changing that much. But if they do end up making some exclusives, that's going to help Microsoft specifically. But also, like, regardless of whether or not they make any games exclusive, like, this is a big gain for Microsoft too. Yeah, they spent a bunch of money on the Activision Blizzard, but they're thinking super long term here, as they kind of always have with Xbox. Yeah. Like, I remember I do, but also they talked about this, I think. Actually, no, I don't know if they actually talked about this much in the Xbox documentary. Anyways, point is, I remember reading when they were making Xbox, I think in one of the Xbox books I read back in the day, that they were willing to throw, like, basically all the money they needed to secure a place in the living room. Like, they didn't care how much it cost them. Like, I think they lost money during the original Xbox generation because they just cared about getting a foothold in the living room space, and that worked out for them, and they're totally still investing in it. So it's just interesting to look at the entire history of Microsoft, and it's interesting that this deal closes just after Microsoft's Xbox's 20th anniversary. It's like, wow, yeah, this is kind of like the next leg of their journey. So, all right, we got
definitely.
Go ahead, Tom. Were you say something?
Oh, you go to the super chat.
Yeah. We have another super chat from Meg Marxio Gaming. Thank you so much for $5. Says, "I really hope that we see some new Skylanders content. It'll be a good excuse to see Spyro's Adventure on PC again." I think a lot of people definitely. I mean, that actually is kind of a good point. Like, this gives another company now a chance to reevaluate things that Activision may have been overlooking. It's like, maybe there is more value in this IP that Activision was neglecting. Maybe we can do something new with it. Maybe we can do something different with it. And so this could bring back life to things that we haven't seen in a while. Things like Skylanders, maybe more Spyro, things of that nature. So I mean, it could be a net gain for gamers in that sense. Are there any IPs we're excited ourselves to hopefully see come back, or?
Spyro.
Yeah.
Spyro is the one that my husband and I are both really into in terms of any Activision-Blizzard IPs. That's the one that we're really hoping, as my husband puts it, gets saved from a dangerous company. That's the one that he wants to not feel bad enjoying that series. So he's like, let someone else own Spyro.
Yeah. Yeah. Tom?
I'd say the biggest ones for me would just be hopefully things like Diablo 4 and more Blizzard games, but that's going to depend on how the company's doing, if I'm going to play them or not, like with how they're treating their staff.
Yes, I mean, obviously that's one of the most important things. So yeah, I imagine that this will be a boost to the work culture. I imagine, I would hope that, I have no idea how Activision Blizzard employees are feeling right now. I imagine there may be a story about that in the near future, but I would think that they're probably pretty happy about this, like knowing that they're likely not going to be working under Bobby for much longer, and they'll be, I mean, they could be worried too, in some cases with some redundancy perhaps, like will there be layoffs from when Microsoft acquires it? So there's probably, I would imagine there's probably some mixed feelings, but hopefully overall I'd hope they're positive, but I don't know for sure. Getting back to the question though of games we want to see, someone I forgot who commented in the chat. Someone just put Lost Vikings in all caps. Yes, yeah. Lost Vikings. Let's bring that back. Haven't seen that in forever. And then also Geometry Wars. Big Geometry Wars fan. I would love if they made another just smaller type arcade game experience for it. So. Oh, I was thinking actually, I actually kind of wish Microsoft was more on the VR train, because Geometry Wars, if they made a Geometry Wars effect, like Tetris effect with Geometry Wars, that'd be amazing in VR.
I would be lost forever. Yeah, I wouldn't come out of there for any thumbnails in the future. So don't hope that happens.
All right, 2 more super chats at least. Don Otaki once again. Yeah. 3. All right, wow. Thank you, everyone. So Don Otaki with $2. Thank you, Don, once again for the very generous super chats. Says Xbox gets Tony Hawk Underground remake win. Yeah, a lot of people like that, I think. So.
I can't wait to see Tony Hawk on Twitter with an Xbox hat now. He's like, it's happening.
And then you wear that same Xbox hat in game. So.
Yeah.
Zach Breen with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Zach. Says Toys for Bob, Banjo 3. That is all. Thank you. Oh my God. Yes.
Yep. That's what I said earlier. Yep.
One can't help but wonder if maybe this Banjo thing coming to Switch Online is maybe a hint of more Banjo to come. Probably not, but hope so. I would love for more Banjo. So.
I think rather than a hint for what's to come, I think it's more will be evaluated to tell what can come.
Probably. What, Tom?
I just said yeah.
Nice. Chris Trombot with another $2 super chat. Thank you. Says if we do not get another Tony Hawk, we riot. So yeah. Tony Hawk
wait, we go to League of Legends? Wait.
Yeah, Tony Hawk says.
Well, I mean, yeah. The recent Tony Hawk game, the 1+2 remaster, was by Vicarious Visions, which is Activision Blizzard. So it's entirely possible that the Tony Hawk games can continue work under the same good development that we had recently.
Here's a real question, everyone. Are we finally going to see a modern Pitfall? Are they going to make... is this going to be their platforming cornerstone?
That would be interesting. That would be interesting.
I don't think so.
Get The Rock as the main character. I mean, anything's possible.
Chris Trombot says yes in the chat.
I remember Pitfall on ColecoVision.
Oh, really?
So long ago. I mean, any old people love revisiting old IPs.
And
by people, I mean companies. So anything's possible.
Let's make Pitfall 99. Pitfall Battle Royale.
There was a Devolver game recently where it's kind of like that, where everyone's going through an old temple, and it's whoever gets there first. So I mean, that type of style is possible for sure.
They just brought back Legends of the Forbidden Temple a couple days ago with adults now instead of kids. Do a Pitfall crossover. There you go. That's how you do it. Make it a live action show. I don't care. Figure something out. I want my modern Pitfall. Darn it. Eric says there was a good Pitfall game back on the Super NES and Genesis. I never actually played that one, so maybe I'll have to check out one of these days. So. I think we're running out of topics here. I think we've largely covered the big news and almost every angle I can think of. Do we have any final thoughts, Tris or Tom, about this acquisition? In chat, if there's anything else you want us to touch on, let us know. But yeah, do we have any final thoughts that we haven't fully addressed or anything you want to circle back to?
I'll let Tom go first. If he has anything.
Final thoughts, hope for change over there at Activision Blizzard for the better. And other than that, it's going to be a while before there's a cashier thumbnail with a bigger purchase.
Yeah, it's going to be a while before something bigger than this ever happens, if it ever happens. That really is my main takeaway. Is I really do hope that regardless of whatever else comes out of this, I just hope this helps fix the issues at Activision Blizzard and puts all those developers in a better situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's obviously the biggest hope here, that this actually is the resolution that they've needed there. So yeah, here's hoping that that does improve, and I imagine things seem to be looking up in that sense, because once again, I don't think there's a chance that Bobby continues there. So
and read way more into any Phil Spencer comment in the future.
Yeah, no kidding, right? No kidding. Jeez, yeah, he's got like the biggest, the best poker face. Like, I don't think anyone considered there was more to those comments than what he let on. So, like, I wonder if there were any other like suitors, if you will, for this. Like, anyone else looking at buying Activision, or was it just purely between Microsoft and?
A few people in chat earlier were saying there were rumors of Disney to buy Activision Blizzard in the last few weeks, and I wonder if there's actually something from that. That honestly could just be like random rumor from 4chan for all we know. But it does make me wonder if this has been something that's been talked about a little bit.
Yep, that could be. A couple more super chats. Don Otaku back once again. Thank you, Don, with a $2 super chat. Says, turn Pitfall into Xbox's Uncharted. See, there you go. I love it. Perfect. Let's make it happen.
With The Rock. There you go.
Yeah, perfect. That's how you do it. That's how you bring back Pitfall. Get a movie crossover there. Oh, be perfect. Next, we have a $5 super chat from Abby?
I'll say Got.
Albie? I'm so sorry. I'm totally mispronouncing your name for $5. Thank you so much. Who says, I see people arguing that if this is a monopoly opinion. So this is something we talked about a couple of times already. I forget how much I said about it. So ultimately, I think this will go through though myself. Just given the way like how broken the US kind of is in some sense. Like, I don't think this won't pass. But Trust did bring up a good point where there is a possibility that maybe it would be considered to be too big of an acquisition, and Activision may have to sell itself off in part, like as a smaller portion, which is possible. So we'll see. But I kind of expect this just to pass as is. And and Tris, I think, was also talking about, or Tom, I forget who, was mentioning that it's hard to imagine a bigger acquisition. And yeah, I was looking up just for comparison, for fun. I was looking up Nintendo's current valuation, which is more than I expected, but I think it's $53 billion. And even that, like, yeah, it's like, wow, even Nintendo wouldn't be bigger than this. I mean, in terms of PR, I think it absolutely would be. But in terms of, like, actual value, somehow Activision's still bigger. So that's how hard it is to top Activision in terms of, like, having a larger acquisition than them. So.
I'd say it's getting close to Monopoly. Not quite there yet. But.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think it'll be considered monopoly. Sorry, to more specifically answer. I think the industry is still too big, too diverse. There's too many players in it. At least 3 big console players. So yeah, I don't think there's concerns about being a monopoly yet. I don't think it's anywhere close, honestly.
You could argue real quick too, just that Game Pass could be on other platforms and stuff and still help them. They could probably do something like that.
Yeah, true. Matthew Kelly asked, do you think Phil Spencer will fire Kotick from Activision Blizzard? No. I only think that because he doesn't have to. Like, he won't have to. Bobby's going to leave. I feel like my dad's cycling through all the names of, like, his children. I feel like Bobby's just going to leave. Like, that's how it's going to happen. He's going to leave. He's going to announce his retirement or whatever he ends up doing. And that's going to be the end of it. So there won't be a firing.
Apparently, around 20 minutes ago, according to sources at Wall Street Journal, Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick will leave after the deal closes. Yeah, according to sources. So
I mean, that is not at all a surprise. Like, there is almost no. I say almost because it's entirely possible. I feel like it's very unlikely Microsoft to take on this acquisition if they somehow keep Bobby, but that wouldn't even be part of the deal. Like, Microsoft owns them now; they can do whatever the hell they want. So, yeah, there's no way Bobby's staying on one way or the other. Like, even if that's what Bobby thinks right now, then yes, if it came to a firing, that's what would happen. But it's not going to come to a firing because Bobby's not going to come on. They've already established this internally. There's no way they don't know what's happening between them at this point. They've already figured all this out, so yeah. Bushin Ryocat with a $2 super chat, thank you, says, GameXplain, buy out Rare and make Viva Pinata 3. Wait, I think our Patreon has to grow a lot for that to happen. So, as much as I would love for that, that would be incredible.
Like, a couple things first. First of all, Rare was $400 million back in like 2001.
Yep.
Maybe it's the same value now, but that's still a lot.
Right.
2, the value is getting the old developers, which are at Platonic.
True.
And those are recently bought by the bigger companies than Microsoft, or like heavily invested in by Tencent.
That's right.
So there's kind of like a thing there too. And I think Andy Robinson was at Platonic for a while, and he's at Video Game Chronicles. Maybe that's his plan, to just build that and buy them. So I don't know.
Oh man, so insidious. All right, let's just check and making sure there's another anything else in the chat that we need to touch on. No, I think
I would say next Sony will buy Square Enix. Well, that would be a pretty big get in the Japanese market and just set their foothold there. But the Xbox isn't really there, so there's not really that type of pressure. But it's possible that would be a big get for if they are building their own Game Pass.
I'm looking up. I'm actually trying to find how much Square Enix is worth, just out of curiosity.
Like at one point, Sony did invest a little bit in Square Enix after the Final Fantasy movie flopped.
Oh, that's right.
I think Square Enix is the only company I could see Sony acquiring.
So apparently,
like, big name company, and I don't even see it happening personally.
I have no idea how accurate this is or not. I just found a random article from MD Daily Record that claims so the Square Enix's net worth is only in 2022 is only $2 billion. So
I
that's
think the IPs alone would be more. But...
Yeah, you would think that. So.
Yeah, something about that feels off.
I mean, it could be. I mean, keep in mind that even though that's their net worth, that doesn't mean that they could be valued at more if they weren't actually ever to sell. Which I don't think there's any chance of that happening anytime soon.
Yeah.
Actually, here's a question we need to consider real quick. I'll get to it in a moment. We have a $5 super chat from That Veggie Gamer, thank you, who says, I wonder if more Microsoft games will come to Nintendo Switch considering their good relationship. I would not be surprised yes, I would be surprised if it doesn't happen, actually. I think they've proven time and time again they have a strong relationship. With Banjo coming, I think that's just the first of potentially many. Of course, I think like Diddy Kong Racing is a prime example. Like, I think really any of the Rare N64 games likely stand a good chance of coming to N64 Online, including even GoldenEye with that recent, that somewhat recent leak of it coming to possibly Xbox, so as well.
It'd be an achievement.
Sorry?
The achievement.
The achievement
because of the all pops.
Yeah, it's the achievements.
True. God, so many super chats. All right.
Yeah.
I'll get my question eventually. Koopa Slayer with $5. Thank you, says, I wish Sony would buy Konami and bring back Castlevania, Metal Gear, Contra, and more to compete with Microsoft.
Oh, that would be nice.
Konami is actually an interesting one. That is an acquisition I could absolutely see at some point.
Yeah.
Considering that I think they're recently stepping their toes back into gaming, but that's one like they have a large well-known IP portfolio that I think could really benefit under some proper direction. So
but they're gonna be very apprehensive to doing so.
Also not as valuable as these other companies or things like Minecraft, stuff like that. And they have great sports clubs though, apparently.
Yeah. I did not know that.
Club.
So apparently Konami is worth $3.24 billion. So there you go. So it's possible. Anything's possible now.
Those pachinko machines really did a lot for them.
I was thinking that exactly, Chris. Like the pachinko Game Pass.
You know what? If we got like a Konami IP and Peggle crossover, given the pachinko connection,
millions of lives would be lost.
Yeah.
All right. Chris Berg 85 with a 50 Nokia donation. Says, sorry, I don't know what currency that is. Do you think Sony could acquire Take-Two/Rockstar Games after this? Do you think it could top this acquisition by Microsoft? So we kind of jokingly touched on the Rockstar connection earlier. I wonder if I can find what their value is. The thing is,
Even if the numbers are higher, I don't think it would top this acquisition in terms of the PR and the reach. Honestly,
it would top it in terms of
we're
interest.
getting a lot more
I'd say Grand Theft Auto would be like close to that. But the thing is, Grand Theft Auto doesn't come out every year like Call of Duty.
Yeah. No, but
Probably still
GTA 5
sells
comes
as
out
well.
every year.
Next we have or it's actually to address that question. Yeah, Rockstar would be a big one. That actually would be big, but they don't have that. They don't have nearly as wide of a range of IPs as Activision and Blizzard does. Like not even close. So it would be huge news, but I don't think I don't think it would directly counter this. But it would be a big get regardless if they did pull it off.
Yeah, probably buying something like Hideo Kojima's company would be a cheaper acquisition. That would also be fairly big news. It just depends if the company's up for sale or not.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, it really, that's really what it comes down to. Like, would Hideo Kojima want to give up the freedom he currently has? You know, like he probably has afforded himself a lot of creative freedom that he didn't have at Konami, especially as time went on. So, yeah. We have another donation here from King Adolfo for $5. Thank you, and says,
We got one before that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we skipped one
I'll get
before
back to you,
that.
King. I'm sorry about that. All right. And there's more coming
gaming
in too.
gains for
Game
£2. Could people that remade Crash also remake Banjo? Yeah, we were thinking that as a possibility.
That'd be amazing. They did a great job with the Crash remakes. I would love to see a modern take on Banjo. Like, I think Banjo. I think people are going to discover that game probably holds up really well. But to see that with modern visuals, oh my. Yeah, sign me up for that. Great. So it's possible. I think it's possible. And that'd be a smart way of Microsoft to get Banjo back in the limelight, you know, and kind of like test the waters.
Do you remaster the music by Grant Kirkhope, or do you leave it as is?
No. You remaster by getting Grant Kirkhope back.
Yeah,
to make it
I
again.
know.
You get it back, or do you leave it as is? So okay, apparently yes, you do remaster and have him remake the music. Like he had a rejigged, I think, soundtrack recently.
Oh, that's
that
true.
did sound amazing.
Oh, that's right.
You're right.
Yep.
You can just use that music. Next, we have the King Adolfo super chat for $5. Thank you. Says, do you think Microsoft would ever buy Sega as their big Japanese company? You know, I remember this was rumored way back in the day. Like when Sega first went third party, everyone's like, oh, maybe Microsoft could buy them, especially with support that Sega lent them early on in the Xbox days. At this point, it seems unlikely, but, you know, nothing's impossible. Like, I never anticipated this happening, so...
Yeah, Sega, if they were in financial difficulty at some point, possible, but I don't see it happening right now, no.
Right now, no.
Zach, just a comment theoretically, that would be a pretty great get for Microsoft though, like possibly exclusive Sonic games, like access to all the other IPs. I was just playing Sonic All Stars Racing Transformed last night, which is really surprisingly fun. Yeah, it's good. And I was reminded how many IPs like Sega owns, so they put in their own crossover game. It's like, yeah, they could do a lot more with that. So if Sega won't,
you would finally get. If Microsoft buys Sega, you would finally have Persona going to another platform, but it wouldn't be Switch; it'd be Xbox.
Oh, that's funny.
I forgot Atlas.
That won't happen, by the way.
What, Tom? Atlas?
Well, of course, it's Atlas too, as Trish was saying.
Right.
So,
yep, that's a good point. So yeah. Zach Breen with the $2 super chat says, Sony, Nintendo, Xbox form a Gundam and buy Tencent. That'd be amazing. They have to come together in order to fight off their one true nemesis, being Tencent.
if they had a video where it's like they're on a call and they like all like the 3 different scenes and merging to, it'd be worth it for that. But yeah, probably not.
Yeah. All right, I think we're finally out of super chats. The question I had is, do we think this would have happened had it not been for the Activision what's the word I'm looking for?
Dumpster fire.
Yeah, there we go.
That's a good way to put it.
The whole dumpster fire of the past year plus for Activision. Do we think this is a direct result of that, or could this have happened without it?
I don't think this would have happened without that, because I think if Xbox was the one approaching and be like, hey, like let's see about making this happen, before all of the bad PR and everything Activision got, they probably would have had a similar reaction. Nintendo's like, no, we don't need that. Mm-hmm. But now it's kind of what's going to save the company, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like if all that didn't happen, then you wouldn't have to deal with it, and you could just continue making hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever for years to come. Only if you wanted to, like Bobby Kotick wanted to retire or something, maybe. But yeah, I would see him just continuing to make money.
Right. Yeah, I think this honestly did come as a result of that. I think Bobby was looking at an exit plan, and this is probably the best case scenario for everyone involved. Not in a like objective like golden rule sense, but more in a how do I save face while saving Activision at the same time, So yeah, I think this did come as a direct result. This is a long-term gain for Activision. We already saw the reaction in the stock market with their stock blowing up from this, so yeah.
Yeah.
Chris Trombot with another $2 super chat. Thank you. Says, I expect Andre to go MLG in a GoldenEye remake. Oh my god, yes. I actually, I won second place in the GoldenEye tournament at my high school way back in the day. So I was really happy about that. I wish I'd won first, obviously. But I remember my favorite moment, I still remember this. We were playing on Stack, I think it was, rather than Library. I think it was only the top levels of Stack. And we must have been playing one hit kill, or whatever they call it. License, was it we just lowered...
License to Kill?
Wait, was it GoldenEye Perfect Dark? No, it was GoldenEye. Wait, was it Perfect Dark? Wait, was there a one-hit kill? There was a one-hit kill mode in GoldenEye, right? There was, I think.
Yeah, License to Kill.
Yeah, License to Kill, yeah. Anyways, I remember I just ran in one room. I had the DD-44, what the heck it was, the silver gun equipped. I ran in, there were 3 people shooting each other in the same room. I just went pop, 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 and nailed all of them. Like, yes! I felt so good. So, anyways, that's my MLG career. Winning second in GoldenEye. We have another super chat. How do we pronounce this? Orlovsky, thank you. Consulting GBR for 5. Is that pounds? No, euro. Right?
I think it's pounds.
Euro.
Pounds. Okay. I gotta learn my monetary currency symbols.
Exchange.
I am happy about this buy because now I can contact Microsoft and make deal for Call to Power 2 open source game asking for Activision assets. Call to Power 2. What is that?
I think he can make a call to action to make
okay.
more of these things.
I thought that was a game.
Like, open
okay.
source, yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. Hey, well, if that helps in whatever way, I'm happy for you. So, great. Thank you for the super chat. Journey Silver says, "WoW on Game Pass would be awesome." I think a lot of people would love that. So, that'd be huge. All right. I think we're finally about done here, everyone. I think we're winding down. I think we covered pretty much everything we possibly can to this. What did you think of this breaking news live discussion? By the way, let us know. Let me know in the comments or chat, however you're watching this. I want to know what you thought of this, rather than this pre-recording it and posting it as its own video. Did you prefer the live format where we can interact with you directly, or do you prefer the more structured format of the pre-recorded discussions? Let us know. I want to hear it. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for all the comments and reactions. Of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for tons more. Triss is on the verge of finishing their epic Kirby analysis. Finally, the Kirby analysis is nearly here. It's huge. It's long. It should be a lot of fun.
It will be up later today. That's for certain.
Yep.
That's for certain. It will be later today. Look forward to it.
Super soon. So it should be great. And so of course, stay tuned for everything else. Nintendo that happens. I can't imagine there's gonna be much news that's bigger than this week. But what, Triss?
I said, well, gaming in general, because this wasn't even a.
Exactly. No, it wasn't. But anything big. I mean,
when it rains, it pours. You never know.
All right. On that, we're done here. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. We'll catch you later. Have a good one. Bye.